To the outside world, I was the very definition of a perfect gentleman, and I was engaged to Khloe Vance. Khloe was notorious for being the wildest, most reckless daughter of the city's most influential family, making us seem like an odd pair to many. For her, I had reshaped my life in ways I never would have imagined for myself. Her passion for street racing pushed me to get comfortable behind the wheel of a sports car on a professional track, an environment completely alien to my naturally quiet disposition. Her love for the vibrant nightlife scene meant that I had to become a connoisseur of fine wines and an expert mixologist, if only to keep pace with her world and the people in it. Whenever Khloe's impulsive nature led her into a difficult situation, I was the one who smoothed things over and cleaned up the mess. When her fiery temper flared, I was the one who could calm her down with a patient smile and a steady hand. I had effectively become the poster boy for the ideal fiancé. It was the consensus among our friends, our families, and the public that I was completely and hopelessly in love with her. Khloe believed it too. That was until the night she decided to throw a lavish welcome home party for her first love. It was in that moment, as she tried to pull me into the festivities, that I gently extracted my hand from her grasp. "Let's call off the engagement, Khloe," I said, my voice unwavering and calm. Later, everyone would say that was the night Khloe Vance had a complete and total breakdown. The birthday gift I had special ordered for Khloe arrived that afternoon. A brand manager delivered the watch personally, a testament to its exclusivity. It was a beautiful timepiece, with a silver-gray face and hands that had a cool, metallic finish, designed to perfectly match the color of her favorite sports car. Khloe had only mentioned this watch in passing once, a long time ago, but I had remembered. Acquiring it had required a significant amount of time and effort on my part. The manager observed me as I stared down at the box in my hands. "Mr. Hayes, you are truly incredible to Miss Vance," he said with an admiring sigh. "You're the most devoted fiancé I have ever had the pleasure of meeting." He wasn't exaggerating. That was the general opinion. No one could have predicted that a quiet son of the Hayes family would fall for the infamous hellraiser Khloe Vance at first sight. The same hands that were trained to play the piano learned how to handle a racing wheel just for her. The man who had once never touched a drop of alcohol ended up drinking so much for her sake that he was hospitalized with a bleeding stomach. It was difficult for anyone to imagine someone as reserved and gentle as me being so utterly obsessed. And my devotion to Khloe had become something of a legend in our circles. Even her rowdiest group of friends treated me with a certain respect, always calling me by my first name, Liam. Online, I had been dubbed the fiancé of the year. Our relationship held up as the only genuine love story in a high society world full of strategic marriage alliances. The manager continued to lay the compliments on thick. "Mr. Hayes, it seems what they say online is true. You and Miss Vance must be planning the wedding soon." I looked up from the watch and managed a faint smile, the kind of shy, pleased expression any man excited about his upcoming marriage might have. "I hope so," I replied softly. But when I turned my head and caught my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window, the man staring back at me didn't look happy at all. Khloe's birthday was the next day. Typically, she would spend the night before celebrating with her usual crew, and on nights like those, she never bothered to answer my texts. But a few moments ago, I had received a video message. It was sent from Khloe's phone, but it was obvious she wasn't the one who had sent it. The clip appeared to have been filmed from a secluded booth in a loud nightclub, with the bass of the music pounding relentlessly in the background. In the video, Khloe was leaning back against the sofa, her eyes closed as if she were asleep, the small, familiar mole on her neck clearly visible. A man was nestled closely against her, and he leaned in to place a light, deliberate kiss on her lips. Not only had he filmed this intimate moment himself, but he also clearly knew her phone's passcode and had sent the evidence directly to me. It was a blatant act of staking his claim. He even included a short voice message with it. His voice was bright and clear, laced with arrogance. "Khloe said she's never even kissed you. Is that true? Want to bet she's never loved you?" Of course I believed him. How could I not? I switched off my phone, a hollow feeling spreading through my chest that I couldn't quite name. I knew Khloe had a first love, a guy she had a complicated history with, loving and hating him in equal measure. He had essentially grown up on the Vance family's dime and was friends with everyone in her inner circle, who all treated him like a younger brother. He had gone abroad to study a couple of years ago. I suppose this meant he was back now. From the look of the video, it was clear Khloe was throwing him a welcome home party, and it seemed she was also throwing in a welcome home kiss for good measure. The brand manager watched as the smile faded completely from my face, his own expression growing anxious and uncertain. I pressed my lips together into a thin line, then forced another small smile, a dimple appearing at the corner of my mouth. "You won't need to deliver any more women's watches to this address," I told him. He looked up, surprised by my sudden change in tone. I began to prepare to leave, shaking my head with a subtle hint of regret. "The engagement is off," I said plainly. "It's not needed anymore. I'm done with Khloe Vance." I knew exactly where I would find her. Even though it was late, the exclusive nightclub was still buzzing with energy. I quickly spotted their private booth. They were in the middle of a drinking game, with stacks of empty shot glasses covering the table. Only Ethan, Khloe's first love, was standing, which meant he must have just lost a round. Khloe scoffed at him from her seat. "Ethan, you only came crawling back to me because you're broke, right?" she said, her voice dripping with disdain. $1,000 a shot." Ethan bit his lip, his face pale. He managed to down half a shot before he started choking, tears streaming from his eyes as the harsh alcohol burned his throat. Khloe's expression darkened with impatience. She snatched the glass from his hand and changed the rules with a cruel smirk. "Or, you can take off one piece of clothing. 10,000. A collective gasp went through the group at the table. Someone tried to caution her. "Khloe, you've got Liam. Don't take this too far." No one noticed my approach. Only Ethan, who was still standing, suddenly looked up, and our eyes met. His gaze was a direct and unmistakable challenge, as if to say, "Even if you're engaged to her, she still loves me." I finally reached the edge of their booth. After that last warning to Khloe, the table had fallen silent. This time everyone saw me. They scrambled to their feet, a cold sweat breaking out on their faces as they recognized me. "Liam!" they stammered, their voices filled with panic. I just shook my head, my eyes fixed on Khloe, who hadn't bothered to turn around. I knew her well enough to read her body language. Her neck and back were ramrod straight, a clear sign that she was a complete mess of tension and stiffness. Khloe's closest friend hurried over to me, whispering a frantic explanation. "Liam, it's all a huge misunderstanding, I swear," she pleaded. "I was watching her for you the entire time, except for when I ran to the bathroom for a minute. Khloe was asleep with her eyes closed. She just woke up and said that awful thing." She looked into my eyes, and her voice trailed off as she likely realized the depth of the devotion she thought she was seeing. She probably concluded just how purely and completely the man in front of her loved Khloe. I listened to her explanation patiently. "It's okay," I said calmly. She let out a visible sigh of relief, and I saw Khloe's shoulders relax just a little. Then, I slowly slipped the platinum engagement ring off the middle finger of my left hand and placed it gently on the table, right in front of Ethan. My voice was soft and even. 1,000, 10,000, that's too slow, I said. This ring is for you." The entire mood of the club seemed to flip in an instant. The lighting was incredibly dim, and I didn't bother trying to decipher the expressions on Ethan's or anyone else's faces. I just carefully began to make my way out through the dark, crowded room. But then I heard Khloe shoot up from her seat behind me. She snatched the ring I'd left on the table and then violently kicked the table several times. The shot glass Ethan was supposed to drink from, along with a nearby champagne tower, shattered across the floor. The sudden explosion of violence made Ethan and the others around him scream in shock. Only I remained still, standing there quietly, waiting for her to finish her tantrum. Khloe was furious because I had taken off our engagement ring. She grabbed my left wrist from behind and tried to force the ring back onto my finger. I heard her voice, a low, choked whisper. "I'm sorry," Khloe said. I turned around slowly and firmly pulled my hand away from her grasp. "Khloe," I said softly, "let's call off the engagement." She clutched the ring tightly in her hand, staring at my bare finger, her jaw clenched. In a low, dangerous voice, she addressed the entire table. "Who called Liam?" Her tone was deceptively calm, like the eerie stillness of the sea before a hurricane. Khloe was a formidable figure in their world. Her friends were accustomed to placating her, and they all knew the extent of her temper. She was on the very edge of losing control completely. They all shook their heads frantically, their voices hoarse with fear. "Khloe, we wouldn't dare," they insisted. Ethan, looking both guilty and terrified, took a step back, the broken glass crunching under his shoe. Khloe's head snapped toward him, her eyes locking onto his pale face. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice trembling. The next second she had him by the collar, slamming him hard against the wall, her eyes blazing with pure fury. "Ethan, did I give you permission to get a big head?" Everyone around them froze, afraid to even breathe. From the moment the champagne tower had crashed to the floor, everyone else in the club had turned to look in our direction. They must have recognized Khloe, because phones were already out, their screens glowing as people started recording the scene. The club manager rushed over with a team of security guards, his forehead beaded with sweat. A crowd was starting to form around her, but no one dared to intervene. That's when I spoke. "Khloe, that's enough." She instantly let him go. With her head down, she grabbed a napkin from a nearby table and began furiously wiping her hands, as if trying to scrub away his touch. I noticed a matching engagement ring on her own middle finger, the inside engraved with my initial. I glanced at my watch. The hour, minute, and second hands were all pointing to 0. It was midnight. I walked over to her and gave her a light, brief hug. "Happy birthday, Khloe." The moment I let go, I felt something wet and cold hit my neck. From the second I had taken off my ring, Khloe had kept her eyes down, refusing to look at me. It turned out she was trying and failing to hold back her tears. It was pouring rain by the time we left the club. The driver chauffeured me home, and I sat in the back seat, watching the city lights dissolve into the quiet, rainy night. Suddenly, the roar of a powerful engine cut through the silence. A pitch-black motorcycle pulled up from behind, easily matching our speed. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw Khloe on her bike, a machine that cost a small fortune. She was getting completely soaked in the downpour as she stubbornly rode alongside the car. It was impossible to ignore her. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression questioning, looking for instructions. I just shook my head. Ignore her. But Khloe wasn't the type to give up easily. She was used to being treated like a princess, with everyone around her catering to her every whim. She had no fear of death, and her recklessness was one of her defining traits. When the driver didn't stop or slow down, she gunned the engine, roaring past our car before swerving sharply to block our path, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes. We missed hitting her by mere inches. It was far too close. Thank God it was late and the roads were mostly empty. The rain was coming down even harder now, creating a thick sheet of water that almost obscured her from view completely. She got off the bike, which she'd parked sideways in the middle of the road, and walked over to my passenger side door. She knocked on the window, her expression silent but filled with a kind of desperate madness. I lowered the window just an inch. The damp, cold air rushed into the car. Rainwater traced the lines of her eyebrows and streamed down her face, making her look vulnerable. She held out the small, delicate ring. I didn't move. I just watched her quietly, for a long moment. Khloe's lips were pale from the cold. "Khloe," I said, my voice soft, "you're scaring me." She flinched as if my words had burned her, her eyes blinking rapidly. I couldn't tell if it was just the rain, but water slid from the corners of her eyes. She didn't dare make another move. She looked as if she were about to collapse right there in the street. I rolled the window back up and calmly told the driver to go around the motorcycle and take me home. Khloe was left all alone in the middle of the road, drenched to the bone in the pouring rain. This time I knew she wouldn't follow me. I took a long, hot shower as soon as I got home, only to emerge and find my social media accounts blowing up with notifications and tags. I was even trending. Everyone was speculating about what grand birthday surprise I had planned for Khloe this year. I had made a habit of going all out for her birthday for the past 2 years. Last year, I had arranged for camellias to be placed all over the city, filling the streets with her favorite flower. That stunt had caused quite a stir and had gained me a lot of followers online. I had done a lot of extravagant, crazy things for Khloe over the years, and some of those stories had made their way onto the internet. As a result, a lot of people were invested in our relationship and really shipped us as a couple. My mentions were full of people tagging Khloe in their posts. Her own account was empty. She never posted anything, but she had amassed tons of followers anyway. And she only followed one person, me. She wasn't active on social media, but I knew she'd see it if I posted something. I read the top comment on a popular gossip blog's post about us. "Khloe, give us a hint. What did Liam get you this year?" Another read, "Did Khloe save the galaxy in a past life or something? A fiancé as handsome and gentle as Liam who treats you like a queen. I'm so jealous I could die." Another user joked, "Khloe, what sleeping position do I need to be in to dream about being with Liam?" And, "We must kill Khloe and steal Liam." I chuckled dryly and decided to reply directly to the top comment. I typed, "No birthday surprise this year. Khloe and I have called off the engagement." My tone was deliberately casual, but the statement set off a massive explosion across the platform. New notifications flooded my phone immediately. Normally, I would have replied to concerned followers, reassuring them that everything was fine. But instead, I turned my phone off completely and went to sleep. I had a tough battle to fight tomorrow. As I drifted off, the rain lashed against my bedroom window, and I suddenly realized it had been a very long time since I'd allowed myself to think about Lily. I was woken up sometime in the middle of the night. The living room downstairs was full of people. My parents were there, along with Khloe, her parents, and even Khloe's grandmother, a revered matriarch who rarely made public appearances. My dad was eagerly showing her the antique collection he kept on the display wall. Khloe wasn't sitting with the others. She was kneeling ramrod straight on the hard floor. When she heard my footsteps on the stairs, her eyelashes fluttered, but she didn't look up. I hadn't slept well, and my face and lips were pale, which made everyone look at me with an expression of pity. Khloe's mom came over and took my hand. She had always adored me. Even though the Hayes family was nowhere near as powerful or wealthy as the Vances, no one had ever suggested that I wasn't good enough for Khloe. In my 24 years of life, I had been flawless in every respect. People would only ever whisper that Khloe Vance didn't deserve someone as good as Liam Hayes. Khloe's mom looked at me with sincere apology in her eyes. "Liam, what happened yesterday was just Khloe being foolish. She misspoke. She knows she was wrong. She came home and begged us on her knees to come here, otherwise we and her grandmother would have never been able to show our faces." She continued. "That boy, Ethan, has some musical talent. He's a kid our family has sponsored for years, and he lived with us for a while, but there's nothing between him and Khloe. He's like a little brother to her, at most." My dad chimed in with a placating smile. "That's just Khloe's personality. We all know that. It's our Liam's good fortune that Khloe likes him. It's all just a misunderstanding. Once it's cleared up, everything will be fine." In just a few words, peace was seemingly restored. They were even starting to discuss potential wedding dates. I walked over to where Khloe was kneeling. Her gaze was fixed on my white shoes. "Khloe," I said, my voice soft, "do sisters kiss their brothers?" I took out my phone, pulled up the video Ethan had sent of him secretly kissing her, and played it right in front of her. Khloe turned her head away sharply, refusing to watch. The little mole on her neck trembled with each breath she took. She must have finally figured out what had happened last night. Her voice was raw as she tried to explain. "I was asleep. My phone password is your birthday. He made all of it up. Ethan was brought to the party by someone else. I never intended to see him." I placed the phone on the coffee table where everyone had no choice but to see the video playing on a loop. The fragile peace in the room shattered instantly. Khloe's mom shot up from the sofa, grabbed a nearby decorative walking cane, and brought it down hard across her daughter's back. She followed it with a few vicious kicks. "You disgraceful thing!" she screamed. I took a few steps back as several people rushed to intervene. Khloe didn't fight back, showing none of her usual arrogance or fire. She just grunted in pain, her eyes fixed on me the entire time. Maybe she was starting to realize that something wasn't right. I was watching her get beaten with the same gentle, placid expression I always had when I watched her race cars, without a flicker of emotion. A sliver of her suppressed fury finally broke through. Khloe wiped a smear of blood from the corner of her lip with the back of her hand, her eyes filled with tears of rage and desperation. "Liam Hayes," she seethed, "even if we call this off, I'll kill any woman who dares to stand by your side." The rain outside had stopped long ago. I thought to myself, what if that person is already dead? Finally, Khloe's grandmother had the last word. "Calling off an engagement is not a child's game," she announced with authority. "Let the two of them cool off for a while. If Liam still feels it's not right after that, then so be it." The moment the Vances left, that same cane struck my own back, and I collapsed to the floor in pain. My mother was the one holding it. She tossed out a cold command. "I'm giving you 1 week to play hard to get. After that, you will win Khloe back." The pain was so intense I couldn't speak. I curled up on the floor and, to my own surprise, started to laugh. The cane Khloe's mom had grabbed was actually meant for me. It was always kept right there, next to the antique wall my dad was so proud of. No one knew that behind my facade of perfection was a finely crafted cane used for discipline. It had been years since I'd been hit, because for years I had done everything perfectly. Even the out-of-character things I did for Khloe were all within the bounds of my parents' tacit approval, because they served the greater goal. That is, until I took it upon myself to call off the engagement. The Hayes family had gained far too much prestige and influence since my engagement to the Vances. Honestly, I had expected the engagement to be officially over today. The Vances were not the type of family to beg for anything. But I had never expected Khloe to be so stubborn. None of the house staff dared to help me up. It took a long time before I could slowly push myself up from the floor and make my way back to my room. I opened my laptop. the sharp pain in my back seeping into my heart. It had been a long time since I'd tried to talk to Lily. Sometimes, I felt like I was starting to forget the sound of her voice, the details of her face. I typed into the old chat window, "Lily, are you there?" She had left me a simple program before she died, one that would reply to me in a simulation of her voice. It was a basic AI with a limited vocabulary. I suspected she had just made it to humor me. I had all of its possible responses memorized by now, but those pre-programmed words weren't enough to get me through this night. The program Lily had designed automatically replied, as it always did, "I'm always here. I'm always here. I am your one. Your eternal friend from the year you were 17. I was silent for a long moment before I typed another message. "Lily, I think I might be falling for someone else." I waited for a long time. This time, just before the screen went black from inactivity, the program finally generated a new response, one I'd never seen before. Lily said, "Liam, I've always wanted you to move forward. After treating my own wounds, I found out just how wild Khloe had been since last night. The exclusive nightclub, a popular playground for the city's elite, was shut down overnight. The friend who had brought Ethan to the club was nearly beaten to death by Khloe and was now recovering in the hospital. As for Ethan, he had vanished without a trace. Our entire social circle was in an uproar, and rumors were even flying around online. In the court of public opinion, everyone was taking my side. I patiently replied to all the texts and calls from friends and acquaintances checking in on me, everyone except Khloe. I did, however, get a string of calls from the friends who were with Khloe that night at the club, their voices trembling as they recounted the entire evening's events. Khloe's best friend was full of regret. "Liam, it was all my fault," she cried over the phone. "I should have kicked that guy out the second he showed up. I only went easy on him because he saved Khloe's life once when they were kids. Khloe was really asleep. She had no idea he kissed her. I was only gone for a minute to use the bathroom. If you don't come back, Khloe's going to keep losing her mind." I pulled open the curtains of my bedroom window and saw a slender figure standing just outside the main gate of our property. I dialed Khloe's number. I knew she had never really left. She was waiting out there. But this time, she didn't dare do anything more. She was afraid of annoying me, so she could only stand there, far away, watching the house. I called her. She answered on the first ring. All I could hear on the other end was her quiet, tense breathing. "Khloe?" I asked. "Does it hurt?" Her voice was hoarse and broken when she replied. "It hurts. Everything hurts. My back and my heart." "I'm getting a lot of messages," I said calmly. "I can't keep up. It's exhausting." "I'll make them stop bothering you," Khloe said immediately. "Get some rest." After we hung up, the calls and texts stopped. Not just from her friends, but from everyone else too. The world was finally quiet. 2 days passed. My back still ached, but I had a charity auction to host. Before I left for the event, my mother issued a final warning. "If you lose this engagement to the Vances, you know the consequences." I lowered my eyes and nodded in acknowledgement. Originally, Khloe wasn't the family's first choice for my fiancé. Her family was top tier, but her temper was notoriously bad, and very few people were bold enough to try and get close to her. I was the exception. Khloe and Lily looked nothing alike. I never treated her as a substitute for Lily. The only thing they shared was a small, delicate mole on the neck. But that tiny mole was enough. It was enough for me to give her all the kindness and patience I felt I owed to Lily. People always called Khloe unruly and difficult, but all I ever saw in her was a certain kind of sweetness. When she got angry, a little coaxing was usually all it took to calm her down. I had spent so much energy on her these past 2 years. When I saw that video, the string I had been holding taut for so long just snapped. That profound sadness has lingered with me ever since. I had taken over some of the family businesses after graduation, and tonight's charity auction was an event I had been planning for weeks. Khloe sat in a corner seat, her eyes never leaving me for the entire evening. Her recent drama had been huge news in our circles, but the Vance family had successfully suppressed it all. No one dared to speak of it, let alone ask any questions. Even now, no one dared to look directly at her, because the notoriously wild heiress had visibly swollen eyes. Her being embarrassed was one thing, but being caught seeing her embarrassment was another. If you made eye contact, you might just find yourself in her line of fire. For every item that came up for auction, just as the bidding was about to close, Khloe would leisurely raise her paddle and name a price that left everyone else in the dust. She had already bought over 20 items that way. But this next one was different. The item was an oil painting by an unknown artist. It depicted a young boy playing the piano, painted in rich, brilliant colors, though you couldn't make out his face. Suddenly, there was a sharp crash from Khloe's corner. She had shot to her feet, her face as pale as ice. For the first time all night, she raised her paddle at the very beginning of the bidding, naming an astronomical figure. $10 million. After the auction, I took Khloe to collect her item. The painting was really just a filler piece for the auction, something of little monetary value. It was something Lily had painted of me a long time ago. Lily never painted me, except for this one time. And even then, she couldn't be bothered to paint my face. Lily had never formally studied art, so theoretically, the painting shouldn't have caught Khloe's eye at all. Khloe followed close behind me, completely silent. I stopped walking and looked down at her hand hanging by her side. She had just accidentally shattered a water glass at her table, and dried blood caked the back of her pale hand. I took a wet wipe from my pocket and started to gently clean the wound for her. Khloe grabbed my hand in return. Her fingertips were burning hot. She kept her eyes down, hiding the wildness that usually churned in them. I waited a long time for her to speak. "Who is Lily?" she finally asked. The artist's signature on the painting was Lily. Her huge, emotional reaction just now made me realize that she had recognized me in the portrait. She could be surprisingly sharp sometimes. I continued cleaning the blood from her hand, being very careful. She was the daughter of a family friend, I explained. Same age as me, but she had poor health. When I was 17, Lily came here for treatment and stayed at our house for a while. She couldn't really paint. You overpaid. Khloe's lips were pressed into a thin, terribly pale line. Her hands were shaking. I didn't know what emotion she was holding back. She wouldn't even say Lily's name. "Where is she?" she asked. I took her hand and placed it over my own heart, meeting her dark, intense gaze. "In here," I said softly. "Lily's dead. In my heart." Khloe reached out and suddenly flipped off the lights in the collection room. The space plunged into darkness, with only the faint moonlight streaming in from a high window. I braced myself to hear her kick something, to hear the decorative fish tank next to us shatter on the marble floor. Her violent emotions were often more intense than most people's, but a long time passed in complete silence. I reached out in the dark and touched her face. It was wet with tears. Khloe suddenly pulled me into a fierce hug, burying her face in the crook of my neck. Her voice was choked with sobs. "Liam, what do I have to do for you to forgive me?" I stroked her hair, trying to soothe her. "Hang the painting back up," I said softly. "Don't tear it. It was very expensive. Hang it in your bedroom, right where our engagement photo used to be." She froze in my arms. Khloe was an intensely possessive person, especially after we got engaged. Anyone who showed even the slightest interest in me was dealt with brutally by her. If a painting of me, done by another girl, hung in her bedroom, she would be forced to relive the humiliation from that night at the club every single day. That would make us even. I waited a long time before she whispered a single word. Okay. Thanks to Khloe, the charity auction was a massive success. Her lavish spending ensured that every single item went for a high price, and the total amount raised for the cause was substantial. All my hard work had paid off. After wrapping things up at the venue, I headed home with the driver. There was a large bouquet of camellias sitting in the back seat with me. The driver gave me an awkward smile through the rearview mirror. Miss Vance insisted I take them, sir. I couldn't say no. Khloe had a habit of showering me with things that she liked, and flowers were no exception. The driver had been with my family for years. As he drove, he added hesitantly, "Miss Vance really does cherish you, sir." That was all he could say. I murmured in acknowledgement. I placed the camellias on my lap and watched the city lights blur past the window. I always knew that Khloe was just Khloe. Her personality was too strong, too free, too full of a fierce life force. I looked down at the vibrant camellias in my lap. "Lily, I'm moving on. Will that make you sad?" It was late when I got home, but the entire house was lit up. The household staff moved about in tense silence. I walked into the living room as I usually did and reported the successful results of the auction to my mother. The elegant cane was right beside her chair, within easy reach. She waved a hand dismissively, her eyes, so much like my own, fixed on me with stern authority. "Liam, what did I tell you before you left?" I recited her words verbatim, even mimicking her cold tone. "If you lose the Vance engagement, you will make me understand the consequences." "What was that painting at the auction today?" she demanded. "How did a painting by Lily end up there?" I was surprised she even remembered Lily's name. She shook her head, looking deeply disappointed in me. "Liam, this family has invested so much in you. You are our pride. Why have you been so disappointing lately? Don't blame me for being strict. Only a strict upbringing can produce an outstanding child, a child worthy of being loved." She stared at me, waiting for my response. I nodded obediently, as she wished. "I know. The family only wants what's best for me." But this time she didn't reach for the cane. "You have a lot of social events coming up. Have the housekeeper take you to that room to get some rest." My head snapped up, my eyelashes trembling. My mother was smiling. "When you do something wrong, there are consequences, aren't there?" The room was small. It had no windows and no lights. When the door closed, not a single speck of light could get in. It was a space designed just for me. I was terrified of it. As far back as I can remember, there were 2 punishments for any misbehavior: being hit with the cane or being locked in the little room. When I had important social events coming up where bruises would be noticed, they used the latter. But for me, that room was far more terrifying than the cane. It was a deep-seated psychological fear built up over years of punishment. The moment the heavy door closed, the boundless darkness swallowed me whole. My whole body started to shake, and a cold sweat broke out on my back. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air, a suffocating feeling tightening its grip around my neck. I didn't scream. No one in this house would ever open the door for me. Only once, when I was 17, Lily, who was staying with us while she was sick, had followed the sounds of my crying and screaming, and had managed to open the door that could only be unlocked from the outside. I pried open my sweat-stung eyes and saw her silhouette framed against the light from the hallway. "Liam," Lily had asked quietly, "do you want to run away with me?" I said yes. She hated her painful medical treatments, and I hated the oppressive rules of the house. It seemed like a perfect match. But we only made it halfway to the bus station before she had a severe attack. That was the attack she never recovered from. She never walked out of that hospital bed again. My mother said Lily's death was the price for my rebellion. She said my only friend died because of my selfishness. After that, I never fought back again. It was a kind of penance. I was always obedient, always living my life on the track they had carefully laid out for me. Everyone thought I was gentle and excelled at everything. No one knew that I was still trapped in the spring of my 17th year, replaying the image of a pristine Lily lying in a hospital bed, blood pouring from her mouth as she gasped for breath, the little mole on her neck rising and falling with each labored effort. I was never able to let it go. Until I met Khloe. She was the variable I had never accounted for. I could barely breathe in the suffocating darkness. But then I caught the faint, sweet scent of the camellia on my wrist. And for a split second, my mind cleared. I scrambled for my phone, and with all my remaining strength dialed a number. It connected instantly. I felt my senses slipping away, leaving only the sound of my faint, rapid breaths echoing in the small space. "Liam, where are you?" Khloe asked, her voice tight with alarm. I couldn't answer. I could hear the sound of wind rushing on her end of the line. I lost all track of time and space. All I knew was that the call stayed connected, and the door I could never open on my own was suddenly kicked open with a loud, splintering bang. Khloe was standing there, framed by the light, her face a mask of fury. She must have gotten here incredibly fast, because I regained consciousness while she was still carrying me in her arms toward the front gate. Her personal doctor was running to keep up, and the entire property, both inside and out, was swarming with men in black suits. I tugged weakly on her sleeve, my voice as quiet as ever. "Khloe, go back." She stopped in her tracks. Her dark eyes stared down at me, heavy with a terrifying mix of fury and worry. But just like before, she didn't hesitate. She turned around without a word and carried me back into the living room. I struggled to my feet, but the world spun violently, and I nearly threw up after just a few unsteady steps. The whole Hayes family was there, watching. My mother, who had disciplined me for years. My father, who always looked away with feigned sympathy. The helpless staff who could only watch in silence. I picked up the cane from its place by the wall and brought it down hard on the antique display. Glass flew everywhere. Once wasn't enough. I hit it again and again. I don't know how many times I swung before I came to my senses, surrounded by a sea of wreckage. The cane clattered to the floor, broken into several pieces. They were all backing away in fear, looking at me like I was a complete madman. Even my mother was speechless. She was wrong back then. I shouldn't have tried to run away with Lily when I was 17. I should have just smashed this whole suffocating place to pieces. My voice was still raw, but it was clear. Fuck your perfect gentleman. A dream has haunted me for years. In it, I'm running down a road, desperately running, clutching a white magnolia that has just fallen from a branch. I'm so excited to tell my friend how magnolias seem to glow in the moonlight. But then I trip and fall. When I get back to the hospital room, Lily is surrounded by doctors and nurses, and the heart monitor is emitting a single, flat line. She will never paint the boy at the piano again. She will never open that door for me again. She will never reach out her hand to me again. She asked me to pick her a flower on the spring breeze, but she disappeared forever in the spring before I could make it back to her. It felt more like a punishment. My mother gripped my shoulder, looking at my stunned face after Lily's funeral. "Liam, do you see? The consequences of your mistakes might be paid by someone else. Don't make any more mistakes, okay?" For years, I felt like I was always running, yet always imprisoned in that hospital bed. I was healthier than Lily, but I was the one who felt more like the one with a terminal illness. Guilt had become my disease, a chronic condition with no cure, until I met Khloe. She was like a demon king from a fairy tale, with a fiery life force, fearless and unyielding. In my dream this time, I stopped running. I stopped, placed the magnolia gently on the ground, and said, "Lily, I have to keep moving forward. You be well." It was night when I woke up in a private hospital room. Khloe had fallen asleep waiting by my bedside, curled into a tiny space in the uncomfortable armchair. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in days. Even in her sleep, she held my hand tightly. She wore her engagement ring on her middle finger, and I saw that my matching ring was strung on a silver chain around her neck. I opened up my social media on my phone. Khloe had, for the first time ever, posted something. It was just a photo of her hand holding mine in the hospital bed, but there was no ring on my finger. Sharp-eyed followers noticed the corner of the necklace she was wearing. The comment section was filled with people mocking her. "You don't appreciate a great guy when you have him. Now you can cry your eyes out and no one will care. Rich people are something else. Wearing 2 engagement rings all by yourself. Impressive." Khloe had replied to each and every one of them with the same 2 words. "Screw you." Outside the hospital window, the white magnolias were in full bloom, glowing almost luminous in the dark of the night. I was lost in thought for a while, and when I turned back, I saw that Khloe was awake. She'd been watching me for who knows how long, all the usual arrogance and defiance gone from her eyes. Khloe kept her lips pressed together, carefully waiting to see how I would act. I looked at her eyes. They were still red and swollen. I sighed and got some ice from a bucket to gently press against them to help with the swelling. I'd heard she'd been wearing sunglasses everywhere she went for the last couple of days. I never imagined she could cry so much. Khloe suddenly spoke, her voice soft. "Liam, whatever you want to do next, whoever you want to be, you can really do it." I thought for a moment. Does that include calling off the engagement? She paused for a long time. Her voice was hoarse when she finally said, "Yes, but I'll keep loving you. I'll keep following you. No one else can be with you. Not even in your heart." I nodded slowly. She reached out and laced her fingers through mine. This time I didn't pull away. I will be myself, just as Lily wanted, and keep moving forward, no longer trapped in the spring of my 17th year. The gears of fate, which had been stuck for so long, finally clicked into place. The white magnolias swayed in the spring night. For me and for Khloe, there were countless springs still to come.